Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Belmont Bunch. Today, finally getting to the North Division, and my cat is meowing. There it is. Okay, so in seventh place, only 7 teams, we have the Ottawa Senators. And no, that wasn't a cheeky joke. Oh, they're so bad they're going to be 8th out of 7 this year. No, Ottawa is, taking their steps back into respectability slowly because they're going to be trying out a lot of the kids this year. And we'll see how it goes. I feel like there's a lot of different directions this can go. I don't know if they can... I don't know if playoffs is one of those, but the Canadian division is a little bit wacky, so who knows. Now, we've got Brady Tkachuk, of course, who's been fantastic over the last few years. Dadonov comes in, very respectable ad, someone that is a good goal scorer to replace the loss of Anthony Duclair. So probably surpasses the Anthony Duclair offensive totals there. You've got Stützle coming in, of course, one of the kids, like I said. Norris and Colin White. Josh Norris is listed as the second line center right now. I don't know if that'll happen. They've acquired Derek Stepan. They have Chris Tierney. Feels like either one of those guys could sit there and Norris can move down the lineup. And if he works his way back up, we'll see. Drake Batherson will be in the lineup. Alex Galchenyuk gets another opportunity for a fresh start with Ottawa. We'll see how that goes. Connor Brown is a good penalty killer, hard-nosed forward. We'll see how it goes. Defensively, it's pretty bad. Outside of Brandstrom, who, it's early for him too. He could find himself struggling very early on. And that's pretty on the blue line. It's Brandstrom and it's Shabbat at the moment. And that's about it. And in goal, Matt Murray. This will be very interesting. Fresh start for him as well. Team that has a lot of guys that are either on, fresh starts or brand new. So it's going to be interesting. But I think they'll be a feisty 7th place team, but a 7th place team nonetheless. All right, so at 7 we have the Winnipeg Jets. We don't really have any huge surprise so far, as most of the lists that I've seen of my contemporaries have it starting off like this. Winnipeg is one of my favorite teams in the West, and I wish it wasn't this way, but it does feel like this team, after a pretty rough playoff series against Calgary over there, that they are in a very weird spot at the moment. Now, Scheifele comes back. He'll be healthy. He's great as an offensive force. That's helpful. He'll be flanked right now. Not cat friendly. Daily Faceoff lists his line mates, Mark Scheifele's, as Blake Wheeler and Nikolai Ehlers. Great line mates. Kyle Connor, Paul Stastny comes in to try to fill that second line gap that has been there for a while for Winnipeg. Brian Little, health concerns, his career in doubt. Patrick Laine flanking on the right. Trade rumors abound. We'll see what happens with that. The bottom 6 has guys with potential. Vesalainen, come on. It feels like his growth has stunted the last few years. Andrew Kopp, though, decent little bit of depth scoring there. Adam Lowry doesn't add a ton offensively. He's pretty decent defensively, good in the face-off circle. Perreault, it's getting up there. Mason Appleton, Nate Thompson for some grinding force for them. I don't know if that bottom 6 needs to add some depth to the top 6, which is pretty solid. Defensively is where this team's issues lie. You've got Morrissey, who I like. You've got Pionk, who's been a great fit, and that Trouba trade doesn't look too terrible for Winnipeg. Now, Forbort, that'll be, he's more of a top 6 from his NHL experience so far, not a top 4 defenseman. As of now, he's listed as the partner of Neil Pionk. Maybe the offensive and the defensive works together. Tucker Poolman is listed as a top pairing defenseman with Josh Morrissey. There you are seeing the hurt that is left in Dustin Byfuglien's, uncertainty in him returning to his career. And the bottom pairing, I actually don't mind Boyu and Dylan DeMello. So it's more so Poolman being on the first is pretty rough. Unfortunately, I don't think there's that one shutdown defender on the team because Morrissey and Pionk are more of offensive threats. So again, the goaltending is going to be huge. And Connor Hellebuck, luckily, is a very, very good goalie. But we'll see how it goes. Brossoit and Comrie are there. What is Brossoit going to do? Is he going to be able to lighten the load enough for Hellebuck to, keep Hellebuck fresh? And in a shortened season, it's going to change goaltending strategies maybe a little bit. Although there's also a lot more space in between games, so it might be good for starters to start even more. All right, fifth, we have maybe our first surprise of the list, is the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Oilers, originally, I filmed this video a few weeks ago, and I wasn't even able to convince myself of some of the placements that I had. So I, scrapped it, went back to the board, the drawing board, that is, and came back with Edmonton falling down. Now, if Edmonton fans want to complain, I will point you to an Edmonton fan in the comments section of another video predicting the season, who Edmonton fans saying, I don't think we're anywhere close to the playoffs. I think we're just being buoyed by McDavid and Draisaitl. Interesting. So what are my thoughts on that? Zach Cashin as a first-line forward, as he's listed as at the moment. We'll see. I think Neil. We'll see. Neil has a good shot, and he can't really keep up with McDavid and Nugent Hopkins, but it feels like it's rolling constantly. Getting the blender going for the lines for Edmonton. You've got Cahoon coming in. That's an interesting little ad. I think he has an opportunity, if he is playing next to Draisaitl, which is currently listed, and Yamamoto, who has shown really, really impressive playmaking power. Who knows? This could work out pretty well. You've got Ennis coming back, good little depth player. Kyle Turris, fresh start again, third-line center. It's a good role for him. You won't get a ton of minutes, but you also, I think, get decent line mates. And Ennis and Puljujärvi. We'll see what happens. It still feels like he has potential there. But Turris, it's a fresh start. And it's a good piece of center depth by Ken Holland. And the fourth line, Archibald, Chiasson, Drew Jarakera. It's a tough group. So you'll see them grind it out. You'll probably see them involved in a lot of fights in this shortened season where teams are going to hate each other even more. Now, it's the goaltending. I'm going to skip over the defense, which might be pretty decent this year. Oscar Klefbom being gone, that's a big issue. So Darnell Nurse, it's going to be big for him and Adam Larson to step up. But the goaltending, Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. Koskinen really, really struggled in the playoffs or the qualifiers. And that series against Chicago wasn't a great team. Chicago was able to tear. Now, Chicago has top-end talent offensively. They were able to tear through Edmonton's goaltending. And, I'm not even going to say tear through their defense because some of these goals cannot go in. And yet they did. So the Oilers, I think the goaltending holds them back. And it's going to require Draisaitl and McDavid to go Super Saiyan, as they have continued to do, and it's going to require the goaltending, which may have gotten even worse with Mike Smith coming in. Worrying, to say the least, in goal. One more thing about the Oilers, the Barrie ad, which on face value looks good, because it's adding offense, and that can make up, offense from the blue line can make up for some of maybe the depth issues that the Oilers have seen in the past. But I feel like it has the potential to be the same exact scenario as we saw in Toronto, where a team needs a defensive defenseman to come in and help, and they added an offensive defenseman, and we'll see how that goes. I don't know if that is a perfect fit, honestly, and I don't know if that makes their defense any better, and obviously their goaltending is not great either. The first playoff team, we have the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Canadiens are coming off of a pretty impressive little run, winning their qualifying round series as the 12 seed over the Penguins, and grinding it out against the Flyers and making it a real challenge for the Flyers, who themselves are a pretty tough, grinding team. So very impressive stuff from Montreal when it came to that. Now, Tatar, healthy. Deneau, Gallagher, pretty decent first line. I think, you'd love maybe like a more playmaking type center there. But, Gallagher and Tatar, they find ways to score. Deneau has, he's held his own, even though every year it's not a sexy name at the top of the lineup, but he's holding it down well. The next two centers, Suzuki and Kotkaniemi, they're continuing to progress in the playoffs. It looked like they're starting to, hit their rhythm. And Drouin and Anderson will flank Suzuki as of right now, according to Daily Faceoff. Drouin, he has, I think at this point he's proven he's not, an A-level option. He is the guy, he's kind of like what Kessel was for Pittsburgh. He was that, depth is probably too, lowly for him, I guess. But, the Robin to someone's Batman. And on this team, I guess the Batman at the moment would be Tatar scoring-wise, although Suzuki and Kotkaniemi are figure things out as well. Josh Anderson, this is going to be an interesting one. Now, they paid him really well. Last year was a wash, injuries. Year before, 20-goal scorer. He's a power forward. That kind of toll on your body, as the Islanders fans have seen with Martin and Lee to an extent, that starts to break you down a little bit. And he's still very young. I was going to say he's not very old, but it's basically saying the same thing. But it'll be interesting to see, a second line role for him. He's going to have to get back to that 20-goal pace, or else this is going to be a bad contract. So we'll see. That's a big thing to keep an eye on for them this year. But the good thing for Montreal is they go out and they get Tyler Toffoli, and that I feel a little bit more safe with Toffoli. That could make up for if Anderson struggles. Eventually, of course, cap issues could come of that. But Toffoli could be a great, if we're talking this year, Toffoli could definitely make up if Anderson falters. So you've got a nice guy on the third line that can move up into that top six, and you don't feel too much worse about it. Armia, good penalty killer. Byron, Evans coming up. Lehkonen, who's shown the ability to score at times. Pretty decent. Not a bad forward group, not a crazy good one, but there's some depth there. Defensively, they add Joel Edmondson, decent defensive defenseman. Jeff Petrie continues to be a great two-way defenseman. Shea Weber's coming off a pretty good resurgent year. He'll be joined by Ben Sherratt, who has been pretty good in Montreal. Kulak and Romanov, that'll be an interesting one as well. Nice young player, projects to be a top 4 defenseman. I don't know. This defense is coming together as probably a tough unit to score on. And in goal, you've got Price, of course. Now you've got Jake Allen. It's good depth. Jake Allen showed last year some signs of recovery, after losing his starting job in St. Louis. And, it's decent. Cap-wise, that's an issue. But for this year, it's a decent tandem. Allen has shown when the Blues, when they had struggles in that this year in the playoffs, and they were able to turn to Allen, and he was able to stabilize them somewhat. So I think it's a good tandem. You've got good depth scoring. You've got a good defense. I think it's a team that edges into the playoffs. Now we have the Calgary Flames, a team that I am choosing to believe in, kind of like the Panthers, where I'm ready to get hurt again. Now, you have a very, very solid top 6 for Calgary. Tkachuk, Lindholm apparently practiced at center today, so they have him listed as the first-line center at the moment. Monahan's got to regain that mantle after not a great offensive year last year. We've got Gaudreau, of course. Mangiapane, who's listed right now on the third line with Backlund. That's pretty good depth. So I like that. Although Dubé on the first line, we'll see. Dubé showed stuff on the third line in the playoffs playing with Lucic. So if he's able to revitalize Lucic a little bit, maybe he's got something. Josh Levo comes in as I think that's a really good bottom 6 option for his two-way game. Dominic Simone is listed as second line at the moment. I think he'll drop to the third, and Mangiapane will move up. But that's just me. Lucic on the fourth. You know what you're going to get out of him at this point. Playoffs, of last year. His qualifying round last year was probably the peak of what you're going to see with him in in Calgary now. Defensively, so you've got Giordano, he who continues to be good even despite getting very old. Rasmus Anderson gets a shot this year. Decent two-way game. We'll see what happens. Noah Hannafin, of course, really good shutdown defenseman. Paired currently with Chris Tanev. Tanev comes over from Vancouver, like many players on Calgary at the moment. They have Nestorov listed with Juuso Välimäki. We'll see. Nestorov, I think, was in the KHL for a few years. See how he transitions back into the North American game. Maybe there's a little bit of a relearning curve, because he's been here before. In goal, Markstrom, another Vancouver, an ex-Vancouver Canuck, comes over, and he looked pretty good last year in the regular season. Actually, really good last year in the regular season. Started to struggle a little bit in the playoffs. So we will see which one we get pretty quickly, because I think the defense for Calgary is decent, but it's not like completely shut down. Though I do like Hanfin, Giordano, and we'll see if Tanev fits in here. So this is a team that I think has potential. Remember, just a couple years ago, they won the Western Conference in the regular season, and they got bounced. We'll see. I am choosing to believe again. I think Markstrom has a good year, at least in the regular season, and this team gets enough scoring, enough defense to be a pretty decent team. Got rid of the notes, wasn't even using them anyway. So, at number 2, we have the Vancouver Canucks. Now, obviously, that means we know who number 1 is, and we'll get to that. But when I initially did this list, I had Vancouver at 1. Now, let's go through Vancouver. Vancouver, JT Miller, revelation for this team. Incredible scoring pace last year. Don't see a reason he stops now. He's got Pettersson and Besser. Great line, really good line. Pettersson is becoming, of course, one of the best players in the league. You've got Pearson, Horvat, and now Hoglander, who practiced today on the second line. That's good line mates for Hoglander to start with. Pearson is a middle six option. Virtanen maybe moves up if he plays well. You've got on that third line Gaudette, who's a good third line center. We'll see if he adds more scoring to his repertoire this year. Mott, Beagle, Sutter on the bottom line. Of course, some bloated contracts. Of course, Jim Benning is famous for these. Tyler Mott had a gorgeous goal in the playoffs, so I wonder if there's some skill in there and he moves up and Roussel moves down, and you have the old grinding fourth line, and you've got a little bit of more speed and Mott and a little more youth. So forward group is okay. I do think losing Levo is a little bit of depth that's lost. Maybe Hoglander will make up for it, though. Defensively, I really like this team. So you've got Edler and Schmidt. Schmidt, I really like as an ad. Didn't cost much at all. Really nice. Really good ad. And I think that definitely makes up for losing Tanev. We'll see. That's because I believe in another player I'll talk about in a second. First, Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes, unbelievable first year. He fits the modern game very, very well. And just I don't see a reason for him to slow down this year. If his scoring lags at any point, that's okay. Remember, he's a defenseman. I don't know. I say that because he's paired with the guy that I said I like, which is Travis Hamonic. But Travis Hamonic is like that shutdown guy. Although at this point in his career, this will be a test, another fresh start, as is becoming a cliche in the middle of this video for me to say. But like I've been also saying, the yin-yang relationship of offensive defenseman and Quinn Hughes, defensive defenseman and Travis Hamonic. Maybe if Hamonic really fits, and I hope he does, and I think he will, then Quinn Hughes will get that chance to rove around the offensive zone and be creative. And in that way, he would be able to get those points. In the bottom pairing, Levy and Myers. Of course, Myers is another one of those contracts that's... but he's got NHL experience. You can move him up and down with Hamonic depending on who's playing well. They're both capable. And Levy gets to play with at least one good right-handed defenseman. So decent spot there. And of course, in goal, they've fortified with Braden Holtby. Now, because Holtby has given me a lot to question in the last couple of years, that was part of the reason I moved the Canucks down from 1 to 2. And I'm sure I will get torches and pitchforks thrown at me for the reason for the number 1 team. But Thatcher Demko looks like he's ready, but you want to have that backup option ready. Kind of like in New York with the Rangers. You have Shesterkin, but you want to have that, very solid backup that you feel comfortable with in case the rookie struggles. That is Georgiev. Holtby has more experience than Georgiev, but Holtby's results the last few years have not been good, and he gave up some doozies in the Islanders series. I don't think he's very good anymore. So I think that Thatcher Demko is going to have to learn quickly how to be the 1A. So that's my thing. That's how I moved the Canucks down a little bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's where I get my Islanders fan card revoked. I have the Maple Leafs winning the North. Now, part of this is I think it's going to be a very, very, very competitive division, and so I don't think the teams are going to be separated by that many points. Let's start where everybody knows we should start with the Leafs, and that is if I'm trying to justify them winning the division, in goal. So Frederik Andersen has shown to be a good regular season goalie. He kind of gets bogged down when it comes to playoff time because of how much he plays in the regular season because they haven't had a good backup. Now they have a little bit of depth. So they've got Dell and they've got Jack Campbell. And Jack Campbell had a good little run when he was acquired right before the pandemic. And I think the depth now makes it so that you're not having Frederik Andersen play an ungodly amount of games in the regular season. That plus the amount of time we're getting off in between games to, just in case of COVID, I think the Leafs, it's a pretty good scenario for them because rest Frederik, and then come playoff time, maybe he's as fresh as ever. And so the Leafs could be in a good spot this year for that. And they've also added defensively, so it's not just relying on the goalies. TJ Brodie's a really good add. He's a left-handed defenseman that plays the right. They have been looking for someone to play the right. You've got Jake Muzzin on the left. Hope he's okay. Obviously, that was a really scary injury during the playoffs. Justin Hall, Travis Dermott, is he on the move? I know he's he could be a Seattle Kraken if they don't get something back for him. So we'll see. Justin Hall's been good in the bottom 6 role. They bring in Bogosian coming off a Stanley Cup. We'll see. He's a hard-nosed player. Will he succumb to Toronto's defensive curse? He's currently listed with Mikko Lehtinen on the defense. That is, of course, with what's going on with Dermott. I think they're clearing cap for Dermott. If Dermott's I'm going to assume Dermott's in the lineup. It's actually not a bad top 6 defensively with the Brodie ad and Muzzin if he's healthy. And, of course, Morgan Riley is a fantastic defenseman 2 ways. All right, so now that I've talked about the goaltending and the defense, which are the things that need to be addressed with the Leafs, I'll get to talk about the fun part for them, which is their offense. Matthews, Marner, Thornton, Jumbo Joe is listed as a first-line forward right now. That I don't like too much. Jimmy Vesey is listed as the second-line center with second-line left winger with John Tavares and William Nylander. Again, we're seeing a theme of 2 great forwards, and then so Zach Hyman, Kerfoot, Mikheyev. That actually maybe you start to see where they're going with the top 6. The top 6 has been so top-heavy. They're trying to balance it a little bit with Hyman and Mikheyev, who broke out. Hyman's been there for a little bit already, but Mikheyev broke out a little bit last year. And I think they like Kerfoot. I think his contract might get him moved at some point. But for this year, it's a good third-line center. He adds some offense to the bottom to the third line. And Hyman's a great penalty killer. They need more Hyman-type players on this team. And the fourth line, Wayne Simmons, he'll move throughout this lineup, I think. He adds some grit, but it's not really an ad. It's just making up for losing Kyle Clifford. So can't really say they added grit when they just kind of replaced the bit that they lost. So they might still be a little bit soft. Depends if Jumbo Joe is willing to risk his old man body, although he's in fantastic shape, and I am in terrible shape, so I shouldn't make fun of him. But Spets is still a good leader, even though it looks like his Corsi numbers and his advanced numbers aren't great. But that bottom six, I think a lot of it, they're looking for intangibles for the Leafs. Leadership, because and this is where I get my Islanders card back, I don't think John Tavares is a good leader. And I think Morgan Riley should probably be the captain, because it seems like he's the guy that leads the troops. But still, I think the Leafs, their offensive scoring punch, and now if they spread it through the lineup with Mikheyev and Hyman playing on the third line, I think maybe a little bit more depth, a little bit more balanced scoring. And I am starting to believe in their goaltending and defense. We'll see how quickly I turn on that. That is the video. This one went longer. It'll be cut down. James, you could cut that last part out. That's the end of the video. We'll see you next time on Belmont Bunch.